A Beacon in the Dark by Noha Ijiachi. Chapter 28. Painful Words. I don't like this. Shoto blinks and turns to look at Midoriya walking by his side as they all made way down the steel gray corridor, as they've been told to do after changing in their costumes. Midoriya is wearing his improved costume with the new arm and leg guards and the amplifiers on his ears, although he's keeping them turned off for now.
I don't like this much either,
Mineta says, pale and tense, trailing after them.
But we'll have to take this exam if we want our provisionals.
It's not that, Midoriya replies, shaking his head. He's frowning, his pale eyes moving the way they usually do when he's deep in thought. I'm pretty sure all of the other students will target us. Ida, walking in front of all of them, turns a bit, as does Uraraka right behind him.
What do you mean? He says. Those students from Ketsubutsu seemed so polite. Even Inasa from Shiketsu was so enthusiastic.
Their words didn't match the way I felt them, Midoriya says, flat. Think about it. Due to the sport festival, everyone already knows how our quirks work and had all the time to study a possible countermeasure. We are the only one that lost the advantage of our quirks being unknown. Everyone feels very antagonistic, and it's all directed to us. Shoto doesn't even need an empathic quirk like Midoriya's to feel the little ripple of surprise and worry going through his classmates as Midoriya's words fully sunk in. A little heavy silence falls on them, and Shoto takes a small look at the entire class before carefully speaking. It's true, he says, measured. It's clear they will target us. But that doesn't mean anything. We all have what we need to succeed. He sees out of the corner of his eye Kaminari blinking at him, surprised, and then exchange a little happy look with Sero. Shoto frowns, a bit perplexed by that reaction, before realizing that his classmate have a right to be surprised by what he just said, after all. The person he was only a couple months prior would have never said something like that. He was the one that said that he wasn't in school to make friends, after all. And now here he is, not only incredibly fond of all his classmates, but also walking side by side with someone he ended up falling for. Midoriya is smiling at him too, looking satisfied.
All right,
Ida exclaims, voice high and strong, as he raises an arm to the sky.
Todoroki is right. Class 1A, let's all come out of this victorious.
There's an enthusiastic chorus of,
Aye, aye, class president,
as the entire class imitates Ida, enthusiastic. Well, almost all. Bakugo looks positively grumpy, but that's nothing new, so Shoto doesn't comment on it, leaning a bit closer to Midoriya. Is there something else worrying you? He asks in a low voice, noticing the little crease that appeared between his eyebrows. Maybe I'm being paranoid, Midoriya replies just as low, after a couple of seconds. But one of the students from Shiketsu, I have the feeling I've met them before, I just can't remember when. Shoto blinks as Midoriya raises his hand to go pull at his lower lip in a familiar gesture. Well, you might have met them before. That wouldn't be surprising, Shoto says, shrugging. It's not like that, Midoriya replies. I don't commit to memory people I happen to pass by, much like you couldn't possibly memorize the faces of everyone you casually meet. But this feeling of familiarity makes me think I must have felt them in a specific situation that was important enough to leave an impression on me, and I just can't recall where. Midoriya. Shoto sighs, gentle, putting a casual hand on his elbow. Don't torture yourself with this now. You need to focus. Right. Midoriya releases a huff, his right hand finally letting his lip go. I don't know, I feel like I should tell Aizawa-sensei just in case. I'm afraid you won't be able to do that, Shoto replies, squeezing Midoriya's elbow a bit more. I doubt they'll let us see sensei until the exam is over. Midoriya hums, seeming a bit upset, just as Ida opens the big double doors and they enter in the giant room that's already chock full of students from various schools. It's alright, Shoto murmurs, leaning in a bit more to press a small, quick kiss on Midoriya's cheek. We are surrounded by pros, and there are literally thousands of heroes in the making with us. I doubt any villain would be stupid enough to try something. So don't worry too much, okay? At that, the expression on Midoriya's face lightens a bit, and he smiles at Shoto with a little nod. He shifts just a little, binding Shoto's arm with his hand and sliding down gently to grab Shoto's own. Shoto can't feel the warmth of Midoriya's hand due to the thick gloves of the new arm guards he's wearing, but he still entwines their fingers together as the tired, sleepy man from the Public Safety and Heroics Committee starts explaining to them how the first phase of the provisional license exam will work. Izuku doesn't have the time to stop Kachan from running away once the walls around them fall down. Why does he always have to be so stubborn? Giving the chance to put some distance between them and all the other students. Kirishima and Kaminari trailed after him, trying to call him back, and ended up getting separated from the main group as well. Izuku's half-assed attempt to stop them is blocked by Todoroki, closing a hand on his wrist. Midoriya, let go, we can't... Here they come! Todoroki exclaims as soon as the start is declared from the loudspeakers above. All the lights hone in on them, just as Izuku imagined it would happen. The spheres are already flying on them from all directions, and Izuku calls to one for all, kicking some away, just as Todoroki rose a small ice wall, the spheres bouncing helplessly off of it. They are not the only ones that sprung into action. Everyone reacted immediately in a tight defense, quickly deflecting the attack, aiding one another. Izuku feels a surprise ripple through the lights of their adversaries in front of their quick reactions. We have to stay close! Move as one! Izuku exclaims over the cacophony. The determination he can feel from all his classmates is almost inebriating, and he steps back when a second wave of attacks comes from underground, Jiro easily interrupting it with her heartbeat fuzz. Todoroki goes in a low voice near him, rising another small ice wall to bounce back other spheres. My movements are limited if we are close together like this. Izuku doesn't have the time to say anything as one of the students from Ketsubutsu, Shindo, springs into action. He can feel his light slam on the ground and widen in waves as the concrete under them suddenly starts to shake violently, breaking into big rubbles. Izuku helplessly rolls back, losing his balance just as his classmates did the same. No! He tries to yell, the thick dust that rose from the attack making him cough, and all he can do is trying to not get himself hurt in the violent shake as he helplessly feels all the familiar lights around him scatter around. When the shaking finally stops, he doesn't really have the time to catch his breath. All his classmates are far from him now, and someone is rapidly closing in. His breath itches in his throat when he realizes who it is, and he manages to dodge the incredibly quick attack just in time, one of the spheres almost brushing against the target on his shoulder. You're fast, a female voice says quietly, surprised, and Izuku's mind searches his memories trying to connect it to someone he knows, but he can't. So why does she feel so familiar? She let out a little chuckle. I really wanted to know more about you UA students before you end up getting eliminated, since everyone will gang up on you before focusing on each other. Izuku doesn't answer, defensive. She gives out a strange vibe that makes him feel slightly sick to his stomach. Aw, don't make that face, she says, casual, and then moves quick as a lightning bolt. She launches one of the spheres at him and immediately follows up by darting in his direction. Izuku dodges both attacks, clutching at one of his own spheres to try to counterattack. But she's incredibly fast, and in a second she's on his back, sending him belly down on the floor with her entire body weight pressing on him. You're following my movements. This is interesting, she says, her voice low, breath caressing his ear. Why shouldn't I? Izuku replies, and she seems to take a moment to think before replying with a weird tone. You're so interesting. I want to know more about you. How does your quirk work? Why do you want to become a hero, little Izuku? That sends a little chill crawl down Izuku's spine, and he grits his teeth, irritated by this perfect stranger using his name as if they are old friends. But he cannot reply as other lights have closed in, an attack incoming from above. Izuku activates One for All, shaking her off of him and jumping away before he can get hit. A barrage of attacks comes his way and all he can do is staying on the defense, dodging all of them. She's still onto him too, and Izuku can't deny he's starting to feel a bit creeped out by how obsessed she seems to be. So obsessed, in fact, that she keeps making a beeline for him, ignoring the piece of rubble that's flying straight onto her at high speed. And despite how weird the whole situation is, Izuku can't help but dash for her, grabbing her midair as surprise ripples in her light. He turns in the jump, kicking the ground away from under the little group of people attacking them, before making a run for it in the dust that he rose with his kick, shaking them off their tail. When he lands in a little safe spot, she let her go, putting some distance between them. There's a second of silence before she asks, curious, "Did you just save me? You could have gotten seriously hurt. This is just an exam. There's no need for someone to risk so much." Izuku replies flatly. "So you will just save everyone? Where do you draw the line?" she asks, her voice sounding a little manic as she makes a sprint for him. Izuku steps back, accidentally losing his balance on the uneven ground, and feels a little sting of pain on his cheek when her sharp fingernail made contact with his skin, opening a cut. "What the heck is wrong with you?" Izuku can't help but ask, finding back his balance to jump away from her. She's already onto him once more, but a familiar light had appeared above them. Sero's tape formed a wall between Izuku and her, forcing her to stop in her tracks. "Oi, Midoriya! What are you doing hanging out with the hot chick?" Sero exclaims, sounding almost jealous, and then adds, "Uraraka!" Izuku already felt the familiar light, relieved, as Uraraka lands in front of him and attacks the strange girl, forcing her to jump away from them. "Such a shame," she mumbles. "I wanted to chat more with you, now that it was getting good." Uraraka's annoyance seems to mirror Izuku's own as she steels herself, ready to fight, but the strange girl, she gets up and leaves. Quick. "Hey, wait a sec," Sero tries to say, but Izuku stops him. "Let her go," he says, feeling a bit relieved as she puts distance between them. "That girl, was she the one from Shigetsu?" "Yeah," Uraraka answers, kneeling near him. "Why?" "She was weird." Izuku sighs, shaking his head. Now that he can finally catch his breath, he can focus on his surroundings a bit more. There was a large group of other students around them. It's only a matter of time until they find them. Most of his classmates are scattered around, too far for them to effectively group up once more. Izuku blinks, a little worried, when he notices he doesn't feel Todoroki's light in his range anymore. This isn't the time to worry. I need to focus. He sighs once more, thinking, Todoroki is strong, he can handle himself. 58 examinees have passed. The exam will end when the next 42 will pass. A voice announces from the speakers, loud, making he, Uraraka, and Sero flinch.
It keeps going and going,
Sero mutters.
"What do we do?"
"We can't stay here for much longer," Izuku says, pensive. "There's a large group of people closing in on us. We have to act now and counterattack if we want to pass this phase."
"Wasn't you that said we should stick together? Shouldn't we search for the others?"
Sero interjects, perplexed. "They are too far from us," he replies, honest. "We can't group up effectively. They are too scattered and surrounded by enemies. But there's still something we can do to help out, I think." "What did you have in mind?" Uraraka asks, faithful. "Okay, listen, here's what we do." Shoto thought of heading back, worried, once that earthquake-like attack finally stopped. But the terrain was pure chaos, and Shoto couldn't see any of his classmates after he finally managed to gain his balance back in the middle of the rubble, when the thick cloud of dust cleared up. He heard Midoriya trying to yell, "No!" over the chaos at the start of Shindo's attack, and then immediately lost sight of him. As he tries to decide what he should do now, if staying put, hoping Midoriya would find him with his quirk, or moving and searching himself, he got ambushed by a group of other students. He immediately sprung into action, both his sides flaring with energy at the same time, the fire pulverizing the spheres that were flying his way, and his ice quickly crawling on the floor, rapidly encasing the attackers.
"What are you waiting for?"
One of them snapped at him angry as Shoto stood there distracted. Just hit our targets and get it over with. Do you find it funny to go like this? Shoto blinks, confused. He wasn't goading, he was just worried for his classmates. For Midoriya. If he passed the exam right away, he couldn't help him. But as he observed the furious expression of the guy that just yelled at him, he suddenly felt a sting of shame in his chest. Midoriya doesn't need me holding his hand, he thinks, irritated by his own train of thought. He's plenty strong and smart to pass the exam on his own. If he knew I hesitated just because I was worried for him, he'd be furious. He silently closes the distance between himself and the group of frozen students claiming his targets. The sensor on his chest beeps, a voice declaring, "You've passed. Please head to the answer room." And he obeys silently, annoyed with himself. His thoughts are steered away when he enters the answer room, noticing how many students have passed already. He seems to be the first of his class to do so, and he distractedly goes for a chair, noticing that the loud guy from Shigetsu is already there too. If he was a recommended student, I should have met him at the exam. So why don't I remember him at all? He's not the kind of guy that goes unnoticed, he thinks to himself, perplexed. And in that exact moment, Inasa turns around, meeting his eyes. The smile that seemed to be permanently plastered on his face slides away, a deep frown rising, staring at Shoto for a few seconds with a cold look, before he deliberately turned away. Shoto blinks, confused. They meet Kachan, Kaminari, and Kirishima on their way to the anteroom after their plan worked, and they've effectively immobilized a big group of other students claiming their targets and leaving them there so they won't be an obstacle to their other classmates. Izuku chuckles as Uraraka and Stero start to dance with Kaminari and Kirishima singing "Yatta!" over and over. Kachan silently walks by, as unreadable as usual. "You mean it, huh?" he says, flat. Izuku blinks. "I guess it's not that surprising, with a strength like that," he adds, not stopping. "Isn't it, Taku?" There's something in his tone of voice Izuku can't quite pinpoint. He stays silent and still as Kachan's light lingers in front of him before he let out a little starting to walk away once more. Izuku stood there, only moving once the little dancer group came closer, Kirishima patting his shoulder with a cheerful, "Hey man, congrats!" He follows in the anteroom with them. When they enter, a good chunk of their classmates are already there, but not all of them. Yaoyorozu welcomes them warmly and relieved, as Suyu helps them take the targets off their bodies. "Ida is not here, huh?" Uraraka notices, sounding a bit worried. Todoroki came closer in the meantime, his light giving out a feeling of relief. 11 of us have passed, he says, stopping near Izuku. There are still 18 spots, so the other 9 don't have much room anymore. Izuku hums, his right hand rising to his lips. "Everyone okay?" Todoroki asks in a lower voice, and Izuku frowns, wary about the light of the weird girl from Shigetsu, standing a bit further. "She came to me," he whispers, feeling the surprise in Todoroki's light. "The girl from Shigetsu." There's a moment of silence, and then Todoroki asks, also whispering, "Do you remember when you met her now?" "No," Izuku sighs, frustrated. "She's kind of odd. Just keep an eye out for her, please." "Okay," Todoroki says, gentle, taking his hand. "I will." It was a definite relief to see the entire class reunited in the room. Ida and the others managed to pass just barely, but they were there. Their entire class passed the first phase, and Shoto can't deny the bit of proudness he felt on his chest. They all worked to the best of their abilities and supported each other, claiming their victory. It was a good feeling, even if Shoto ended up making it out by his lonesome self. They attentively listened as the voice from the speakers explained to them what the second phase will consist of, with a focus on search and rescue, and there's a definite look of relief on everyone's faces as they turn to Midoriya. You know, absolutely very, very relieved for all those evenings we spent helping you trade, Kaminari says, grinning.
I'm definitely not grateful for your horrible jokes, Kaminari,
Ashina grumbles before smiling.
But yeah, I'm so glad. We are in your hands, Midoriya.
Midoriya blushes a little embarrassed.
I'll try my best,
he says, stammering a bit, but smiling as he pumps his fist in front of him.
Let's work together, everyone.
Shoto smiles at him before noticing out the corner of his eye the little group of students from Shigetsu approaching. He focuses on them, observing the silent girl. She doesn't look particularly weird, especially compared to the guy completely covered in hair near her, but her eyes shifts subtly, pointing at Midoriya. Shoto shuffles a bit closer to him without even realizing. Mogugo, one of our companions confronted you, didn't he? The haired one says, and Bakugo grins. I knew it. I'm sure he must have been very rude to you. He has the tendency on pushing his own value on other people. I would like to build a good relationship with you A students, so we apologize. Bakugo mutters, whatever, as Midoriya, near Shoto, frowns a little at the sentence. Since he said that girl targeted him, it's not surprising he's not very receptive to the idea. Shoto himself feels a bit unsure, especially considering the ice-cold look Inasa launched at him earlier. In a spur-of-the-moment idea, unable to hold his curiosity, Shoto steps forward as the Shiketsu students turn away. Wait, you, the tall one, he says. Did I do something to you? Inasa stops for a second, his broad shoulders tensing. When he turns around, the cold look is back on his face. I'm sorry, Endeavor's son, he says, flat, looking down at Shoto. But I don't like either of you. Even if you might have changed since then, those cold eyes of yours are just like his. Shoto freezes on the spot, heart painfully beating in his throat. He watches Inasa turn away once more, catching up to his classmates, loud and excessively cheerful once more. Shoto did not realize his hands were trembling until Midoriya's gloved one gently closed around his. Todoroki? He says, low and worried. Are you okay? Izuku waits, concerned, as Todoroki fails to answer. He hadn't missed what Inasa said, close enough to hear the exchange, even over the noise of the other students chattering. He felt the sudden mix of panic, anger, and disgust clutching at Todoroki's light the instant Inasa answered, letting out those hurtful words. Izuku's first instinct had been to react with anger himself, but Inasa stepped away right after, and it's not like he had any idea what saying something like that would mean for Todoroki. Hey! Izuku insists, worry clawing at his heart at the lack of response from Todoroki, voice lowering. He let Todoroki's hand go, putting his palm on his shoulder, his other hand going to sit on Todoroki's chest as he stepped closer. Todoroki, don't mind what he said, you're not... He doesn't have the time to finish his sentence as a voice from the speakers loudly covered any other noise. A terrorist attack by villains has unfolded. The scope of the damage encompasses the entire city, and many are injured under the collapsed buildings.
It's starting,
Asumi comments, impassive. Oh no, this is bad. This is really bad. Todoroki steps away from him silent, and Izuku clutches at the air for a second, a deep sting of pain in his chest. Todoroki feels so closed off and far, like he suddenly rose a wall around his heart. But Izuku gets no time to try to get through him and calm him down, the voice from the speakers calling the start of the second phase.
Midoriya!
Ida calls after him, and he hesitates after Todoroki run into the field without him. Izuku forces himself to gulp down the sting he feels in his eyes, catching up with Ida as he turns on the amplifiers Mei made for him. Almost the entire class groups up with them, and Izuku can only stifle the worry and anger he feels, pushing them to the back of his mind, as they all run into the disaster zone. He has to focus. This is too important to blow up. He can only hope and pray that Todoroki's mind won't be clouded enough to make him lose sight on the objective. Aizawa silently observes from his seat, Emi at his side, just as focused as he is. He's not surprised to see Bakugo leave the group, go on his own once more, but still he feels a sigh coming up to him. Bakugo might have done just fine during the first phase, but now he will have a much bigger obstacle considering his complete lack of bedside manners. Aizawa could only hope and pray for his hot-headed student at this point. But he is surprised to notice Todoroki going off alone as well, considering how he stuck with the group during the first phase, despite the fact that it would inevitably stifle the range of his quirk. It seemed logical that he would do the same now. Especially considering how handy Midoriya's quirk was going to be for this phase, and especially now that he got at least partially over the obstacle that had been his inability to relay informations to his peers. Speaking of which, Midoriya seemed already to be at work. They couldn't hear a thing from up here, but by the way he was animatedly speaking and gesticulating, his classmates shooting in different directions after nodding at him, it was clear that he was pretty much directing the operations. After everyone left, he started to move again, disappearing from Aizawa's sight for a bit under some rubble, and emerging once more with a kid in his arms, directed to the safe place. They are kind of sloppy compared to the other more experienced students taking the exam, but they are working as tight-knit unit, and it's proving effective as they run back and forth from Midoriya to whatever place he would point to, emerging with more injured to bring to the safe zone. They are doing fairly well, considering they hardly had the time to practice all the basics needed for rescue operations. Their chances of gaining their provisionals seems to be pretty high. Here comes the big guy, Emmy murmurs, shifting her weight a bit forward. They sure went all out with this exam, huh? Right on cue, a wall explodes near the safe area, opening a big passage. Gang Orca steps into the fray, surrounded by the members of his team. This is a scenario that would be difficult even for pro heroes, Aizawa replies. They are not holding back at all. Not that I blame them considering what happened recently. Emmy sniffs, not finding anything that she could turn into a joke in a sentence. They both fall silent once more, observing. This is a disaster! Izuku hesitated near the safe area after bringing another injured man to it. He trusted in Shindo's incredibly strong quirk first, but Gang Orca took his attack like he barely flickered at him, immobilizing Shindo with one of his sonic waves. And then he felt Todoroki and Inasa approach the villains, and for a moment he hoped that they'd be able to work together. But the animosity between them was coming out in waves, clutching at Izuku's stomach. Midoriya! Is there someone nearby that needs to be rescued? Shoji called from behind him. Izuku shook himself out of his stupor, turning back to the safe zone. Not here, but we need to evacuate, he forced himself to say, snapping back into focus as Ojiro, Ashido, and Tokoyami also got up to them. The villains are too close, it's too risky. Help get the victims out of here. His classmates immediately sprung into action, and Izuku couldn't help but get distracted once more. Shindo is frozen on the ground, helpless after taking that attack from Gang Orca, and Todoroki and Inasa are completely unfocused. Izuku's heart stops beating for a second when he feels Todoroki's fire being swept away by Inasa's wind out of control, heading straight for Shindo. He can only blindly, ungracefully grab Shindo's costume, managing to get him out of the fire trajectory barely in time after he dashed with One for All. Anger rising in his throat, making his heart beating loudly and painfully in his temples as he turns around, roaring and furious. What are you doing? He doesn't have the time to stop and reflect upon the little shocked ripple that seems to go through Todoroki's light. He adjusts his grip on Shindo, turning to run back toward the safe zone, taking him away from the villains since he's still paralyzed. But Gang Orca's team is on their tail, and Inasa and Todoroki unable to provide defense as they get hit by Gang Orca one right after the other. Boy, stop! Shindo calls, jerkily getting out of Izuku's grip to release a little earthquake that manages to stop the villains in their tracks. I can still move a bit. I'll help evacuate. You go stop them. He yells over the chaos, and Izuku nods, letting him go as he turns with One for All activated, jumping into the group of villains with a single-minded focus. He manages to kick down some of them, dodging their attacks, as he notices the lights of his classmates and other students approaching once more to help out with the crowd control. Ojiro! Izuku calls out. Are the victims evacuated? That's what I heard. Ojiro yells back. Reinforcements are coming in! They take a moment to dodge an attack, and Izuku kicks one of the minions toward Ojiro that grounds him with a tail whip with no hesitation in a smooth little combo. Something is definitely going on with Gang Orga not far from them. In a second, a column of fire suddenly rose high to the sky, trapping him, and Izuku feels a mix of worry and anger claw at his throat. "Go!" Ojiro yells at him as if he knew what he was thinking. "We can take care of this." Izuku nods grateful before leaping and soaring over the heads of the minions. Gang Orga seems to be paralyzed, but only briefly, managing to disperse the fire with one of his sonic waves. He steps forward toward both Todoroki and Inasa that seems to be frozen on the ground. "So," Izuku can hear Gang Orga taunt, voice deep. "What now?" That's the moment anger overcomes Izuku. Anger for his failure and inability of realizing that Todoroki still had to carry such a heavy weight on his shoulders for having failed him. Angry at how unfair everything was and how Todoroki couldn't help but fall victim once more to his terrible past. Anger at Gang Orga that for an instant stopped being a beloved hero in Izuku's mind and became an actual enemy that was threatening to hurt the person Izuku cared for. The kick connects with Gang Orga's forearm with enough strength to break his guard and make him take a step back as Izuku hissed, "Don't touch him!" Shoto was an absolute idiot, and the failure burned in his chest more than his own fire ever could. He completely lost sight of what was important, falling back into old mental landmines, closing himself once more into his shell of rage. Blinded enough to ignore Midoriya's attempt to placate his tumultuous feelings, to openly antagonize Inasa right in the middle of a supposed rescue mission, in the middle of an important exam. Midoriya's furious yell as he saved Shindo from the out-of-control fire managed to snap him out of his enraged daze, but it had been too late. Even when he and Inasa silently found a way to momentarily forget their rancor and work together, it still hadn't been enough to stop Gang Orga that easily got out their trap of fire, dousing himself with a bottle of water. They simply were done for, Gang Orga taking a step forward, and then Midoriya appeared once more, a green lightning bolt from the sky, hitting Gang Orga with a loud clang of metal on metal as his iron soles clashed against the metallic arm guards Gang Orga was wearing. Shoto's breath hitched in his throat when he heard Midoriya "Don't touch him!" "I'm sorry, so sorry I let you down, but you will always be here when I need you." The kick was strong enough to send Gang Orga stumbling back, and Midoriya did not waste time after he landed. He was so tiny compared to the towering man in front of him, and yet Midoriya didn't hesitate even for an instant as he dashed frightfully fast, hitting Gang Orga's knee with a rolling kick and making him stumble once more, dodging his big hand by rolling between his legs and jumping from behind, kicking Gang Orga to the side of his head, relentless. A siren blared above their heads, surprising Midoriya mid-air and clearly breaking his focus. "The exam is over," the voice announced loud as Gang Orga gently caught Midoriya by the scruff of his costume like a cat transporting their kitten before he could fall on the ground. He put him down chuckling as Midoriya blinks. "That's it?" he says, surprised, his eyes clearing like there was a fog in them. "It's over?" Gang Orga chuckles again, gently patting one of his shoulders. "You can relax, young one." Midoriya releases a deep sigh, his shoulders slumping forward. The expression on his face smooths over in a quiet contemplative calm as he returns and slowly makes his way toward Shoto. Shoto finds himself looking away, ashamed, and the depth of his shame goes even further once his traitorous mind whispers to him that Midoriya must be feeling all of it. Despite that, Midoriya kneels near him, silent, and gently helps him kneel. The attack Shoto took directly from Gang Orga was strong enough that he still can't move properly, but he's starting to feel his limbs a bit more. Midoriya's arms circle his torso, and he seems to give a fast, gentle hug for a couple of seconds before he hauls Shoto on his feet, putting one of Shoto's arms around his own shoulders. Shoto is not surprised when Midoriya turns and covers the distance between them and Inasa. He seems to take an instant to make sure Shoto won't fall back down, before gently leaving him standing there for a second to kneel near the bigger student. "Are you okay?" he asks softly, and Inasa blinks at him, surprised. Midoriya doesn't really need a response, and immediately proceeds in also helping Inasa stand back on his feet with a little difficulty, considering the size difference between them. Then he takes Shoto's arm back and guides the both of them toward the exit, easily supporting their weights. Neither Shoto nor Inasa say anything, their arms brushing over Midoriya's shoulders, silently following his lead. Izuku still hasn't said a word to Todoroki even after they've changed back in their school uniforms and stepped once more into the stadium to go look at the exam results. Not for lack of wanting to, but because he could feel that Todoroki needed some time. He feels contemplative at his side as they step in front of the little stage that has appeared while they changed. The storm of shame and rage in his light has quieted down to a small puddle. He must be reflecting upon his own actions, and Izuku felt that just throwing words at him now won't do any good, so he stays silent. The tired man from the safety committee explains to them how they were graded, and then invites them to look at the list on screen to see if their names were up there. Izuku quickly starts to feel and hear the happiness of his classmates' lights and voices as they find their names on the list and silently waits. He would normally ask Todoroki to read for him, but now... "Your name is listed," Todoroki says quietly, as if he just read Izuku's mind. Izuku can't help the little relieved sigh that escapes his lips, but he's unable to feel the pure joy so many around them were feeling right now. When Todoroki doesn't add anything for a while, a quiet sense of disappointment seeping in him, Izuku's heart falls down to his feet. He takes a step closer, finding Todoroki's shoulder with his hand, indecisive on whenever he should say something or not, when Inasa suddenly approaches. "Todoroki!" There's a moment of tense silence, Izuku's other hand also rising to grab at Todoroki's arm as they both look up toward Inasa that feels pensive, before he speaks again loudly. "I apologize. My petty action have led you to failing. Please forgive me." Izuku blinks, relieved. He was sure Inasa wasn't a bad person. His enthusiasm when they met before the exam felt completely genuine, and it's nice for him to recognize his mistakes and apologize so clearly. Todoroki at his side seems to be a bit rattled before he takes a deep breath. "I should apologize too," he says quietly. "Your actions were the results of my past mistakes, and what happened today has led me to realize some things, so please stand up." Inasa's light definitely feels a bit relieved, if also rattled. A little silence falls on them as Izuku gently squeezes Todoroki's arm and slides his right hand down to tentatively take Todoroki's. Silent, Todoroki entwines their fingers in the usual familiar way, relaxing just a tiny bit. They stay like this as the men from the committee distributed the paper with their grades. Izuku grudgingly has to let Todoroki's hand go to accept his when they approach him, and then stands there with an exasperated, tired sigh. "Give it to me," Todoroki says gentle in a low voice, taking the paper away from Izuku's hand. "You got 82. It says that you got some points docked for your lack of tact in some situations, and the fact that you seem distracted at times." Izuku hums an understanding, accepting his paper back, and falls silent as he gives Todoroki time to read his own, even if he's pretty sure he doesn't really need it. He already knows what went wrong, after all. "Now, for those of you that have failed the exam," the man of the safety committee is now saying over the speakers, definitely catching everyone's attention. "You don't have time to pity yourself over your grades, as you will be given another chance. After attending an extra course, we'll be able to retake the exam in 3 months. We fully plan on making sure you will be ready and to issue to you your provisional licenses if you will prove yourself worthy." The sudden surge of hope he can feel from both Todoroki and Inasa makes Izuku's head spin for a second, overcoming his own sense of relief. He feels a smile pull at his lips as he grabs Todoroki's arm once more, bouncing a bit on his feet in a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "I'll catch up to you," Todoroki says softly as he turns to Izuku, putting a hand on his cheek. "I know you will," Izuku smiles, leaning into the touch, basking into the relief and determination he can feel in Todoroki's light. Everyone is surrounding them, just as relieved. Ida patting Todoroki's shoulder enthusiastically. Izuku takes a deep breath, noticing how hyper-focused on Todoroki he had been in his worry, and relaxing his radar a bit, suddenly feeling a certain light shivering with rage. "Did Kachan fail?" he asks, surprised. Near him, Uraraka hisses. "So it seems," she says in a low voice. "Looks pretty pissed." "Ouch!" "Yeah," she says. "Congrats, Midoriya, you did great back there," she adds, cheerful, gently patting his shoulder, but then she falls silent. "Todoroki, you better blow it out the park with the reparative lessons, okay?" she says, apparently severe, although they all can hear the little note of worry in her sentence. "I will." There's a small smile in Todoroki's voice when he answers. "I will catch up with you all, don't worry." "Oh, I'm not worrying," she says, her voice much steadier now. "I know you can do it." Shoto relaxes on the seat of the bus as they travel back to the UA dormitories, Midoriya leaning against his shoulder, a firm, warm presence. This day has certainly been something. He was so sure he finally got out of the deep end that the negative influence his father had on him was no more. So sure he was finally free. How naive. All that was needed to send him down and break him into 1,000 tiny angry pieces had been a cold look and a sentence. To be compared to his father. Only that. How stupid had he been to believe he could be freed of all the resentment and anger just like that. He let his guard down, and Inasa's words hit right where they hurt the most. And his failure hurts too. This feeling of having fallen, of being forced to look at his friends' backs as they run forward without him. He had to catch up. He couldn't let himself wallow in self-pity, especially after he promised Midoriya that he would catch up to him, walk side by side with him once more. And he will never let himself fall trap of the old familiar rage anymore. He won't let the old man ruin his life some more. Not anymore. Midoriya hums, rubbing his cheek against Shoto's shoulder, and Shoto looks down at him, meeting his pale eyes. He has his quirk turned off, going by the aquamarine shade of his irises, and he looks tired. "Have you told your mom and All Might that you passed the exam?" Shoto asks softly, sure he hadn't seen Midoriya dictating any text as they made their way out the bus. "Oh, right," Midoriya replies, blinking, looking a bit more awake. "I was so distracted." He rummages in his pocket, fishing his phone out. Shoto takes it from his hand, a little perplexed expression emerging on Midoriya's face. "Take out your license. I'll snap a picture," Shoto says, swiping the phone open to go to the camera app. Midoriya seems embarrassed at that, a little blush rising to his cheeks. "There's no need. Don't be silly. I'm sure they'll be happy to see with their own eyes." Shoto interrupts him. Midoriya hums before rummaging in his other pocket to take his wallet out and carefully searching inside with his fingertips, sliding the hard plastic card out of a sleeve. "Keep it up, like this." "Wait, are you taking a picture of me or my license?" Midoriya asks, puzzled, making Shoto smile a bit. "Both. Now smile." He scoffs when Midoriya's mouth does a pale imitation of a smile. "Come on, what is that? Do you want to make your mother worry? I'd fully expect to find her waiting for us at UA's gates if I sent her a picture with a face like that." That finally drags a genuine little laugh out of Midoriya, and Shoto snaps a candid with perfect timing. He hums, satisfied, and he rapidly sends the picture both to Midoriya's mother and All Might, writing, "I did it!" on his behalf. He blinks and also sends it to Midoriya's friend Miki for good measure. After a second of hesitation, he silently sends it to himself as well. Just because. It's a cute picture. "All done?" Midoriya asks with a lopsided smile, keeping his hand palm up. Shoto gives the phone back and Midoriya pockets it once more before relaxing again against Shoto's shoulder. There's a long moment of silence, only filled by the soft rumble of the bus engine and the quiet, tired voices of their classmates in the background. later, after dinner, can you come to my room for a bit? Midoriya suddenly asks, subdued. There's something I'd like to talk with you about. Shoto blinks, taking a second. That sounds vaguely ominous. And then again, considering what happened today, it's not hard to imagine what does Midoriya wants to talk about. Part of him kind of wants to say no, to push those broken pieces inside him back in the darkest corner of his heart. But that clearly wasn't doing him any service, and Midoriya, well, was Midoriya. Shoto knew he could be honest with him. Okay, he replies quietly, and Midoriya sighs before taking his hand in a gentle hold. It's Izuku's turn to wash the dishes that night, and he does so immersed in a pensive silence. Todoroki would usually help him, even if it wasn't his chore to take care of, ignoring Izuku's protests every time. But tonight, he went upstairs telling him he was going to take a shower and wait for him in Izuku's room. Mom, Miki, and All Might sent congratulatory messages to him earlier, which picked his mood up a bit. But it still hurts what happened today, having to feel how easily Todoroki went down in pieces and the pain that exploded inside him. It hurts, and it sucks, and it made Izuku angry and resentful toward the man that was now occupying the #1 hero spot. If it never stepped through the door right at that moment, Izuku would probably have no qualms punching his family jewels. Hard. With one for all. He's finishing drying up the last plate before putting it up in the cupboards when he hears someone step into the kitchen. Deku. Izuku blinks, surprised. Kachan's voice has a weird, quiet note to it, almost distraught, and Izuku turns a bit toward him, tilting his head on the side. Come outside with me, Kachan says, not quite a question, but at the same time not an order barked out with promises of violence if not followed. Izuku blinks again. He can hear laughter in the distance as some of their classmates are watching something on the TV. I can't. Kachan sighs, long-suffering. You're done washing the dishes. It's not that. Todoroki is waiting for me. I have something to discuss with him. Kachan groans, annoyed. All right, fine. Then come out later, at 11. Kachan, wait! Izuku tries to protest and doesn't even have the time to remind him that their curfew starts at 10. Kachan's steps move away and Izuku is left there holding onto a human dish rag and gaping. Fantastic, now what? He groans internally, putting the rag away and grabbing his cane back from where he left it. Oh, whatever, I have other things to think about for now. Shoto is sitting on Midoriya's bed, a bit nervous, his hair still slightly wet when the door opens. Midoriya enters with a little frown, silently propping his cane by the side of the door as he closes it behind himself. Everything okay? Shoto asks, confused by his expression. Midoriya sighs. Yeah, it's just... Kachan was being weird, he mutters. It doesn't matter. When he steps near the bed, he gently bumps into Shoto's legs, and Shoto takes his arm as he shuffles over a bit to give Midoriya space, guiding him to sit down. What is it between you and Bakugo anyway? Shoto can't help but ask as Midoriya turns toward him and crosses his legs on the covers, pale eyes not quite pointed at Shoto. It's a question that's been quietly nagging at him for a while now, the clearly troubled relationship between the two of them. It's complicated, Midoriya says, pensive. We were friends as kids, but then we weren't friends anymore. Shoto frowns, waiting for more, but Midoriya shakes his head as if snapping himself out of some thoughts. It's not important now, he exclaims, patting Shoto's calf. Don't worry about it. We have other things to talk about. Shoto doesn't answer, waiting as Midoriya frowns in silence. He releases a deep sigh all of a sudden. I think I owe you an apology, Midoriya finally says quietly. Shoto's frown deepens as he confusedly blinks at Midoriya. What? Why? A moment of hesitation. Ever since we became friends, you've been supporting me in all possible ways, and I'm sure I must have worried you sick many times by now. You've endured pretty much my absolute worst without a single complaint, and I'm definitely grateful for that. But I also feel like I've not been able to do the same for you. Midoriya. Shoto starts exasperated, but Midoriya holds his hand up. Let me finish. You've been there for me when I needed it and helped me pick myself up many times already, and I forgot. A pause. I forgot just which kind of heavy burden you have to carry on your shoulders. I simply let myself enjoy your kindness and affection, and I forgot that for how much you've changed since the festival, there's still so much you have to deal with. And I failed you when you needed me. Silence falls on them. Shoto finds himself having to gulp around a knot in his throat. Midoriya, he starts tentatively. You can't hold yourself responsible for what happened today. I got blindsided by it myself. I really thought I was over it. That I stepped over that part of my life now, but... When he hesitates, Midoriya softly intervenes in a low voice. But the wounds inside you are still open. They've only recently started to heal, and even a simple touch is enough to make them bleed, isn't it? Shoto let out a trembly sigh, dragging a hand on his face. I don't want to worry you. I will worry regardless, Midoriya replies, shaking his head. So I wanted to apologize for forgetting your pain, and for failing to be a proper support to you. I promise it will not happen again, and I promise that I will always be here for you. His voice is kind and steadfast, pale eyes pointed right at him. Shoto let out a little broken laugh. Midoriya, you've already done more than enough for me. You've done more than anyone else has ever done for me in my entire life. You don't have to take this burden on your shoulders too. I can deal with it. Midoriya scoffs. You know, you remind me of someone, he says, sarcastic. In front of Shoto's confused he continues, pointing at himself with both hands. Me? The guy that almost killed himself because he was too stubborn to ask for help? In the silence that follows, he mutters, Baby actually almost died 2 times because of that? I don't even know what you'd count in that list anymore. Shoto let out another little, almost hysterical laugh. His heart was doing a weird thing in his chest, and this whole situation was utterly ridiculous. They are really not comparable situations. He protests, affectionately exasperated. You don't have to apologize. I'll be fine given time. Suddenly, Midoriya shifts forward, pressing a kiss right under Shoto's left eye. When he moves back, his cheeks are red, and there's a little pout on his face. Missed the mark by a landslide, go figure, he mutters before adding in a louder voice. My point is, stop trying to get over this all by yourself. I understand if you'd rather not let others know, but I know, and I'm here for you. So please, from now on, remember that you can lean on me. That I'll help carrying that weight, okay? In front of Shoto's silence, he palms forward, finding his hands before dealing the final blow. What would be the point of us being together if you don't feel like you can share your troubles with me? He murmurs, a little sad. I want to make you happy as much as you want to make me, Shoto. That almost stops Shoto's heart in his chest as he gapes. Midoriya's hands are warm around his and his cheeks are slightly pink, but there's a determined look on his face. That too much? He then asks, his determination faltering a bit in front of Shoto's silence. Shoto shakes his head and then groans when his brain helpfully reminds him that Midoriya is blind. No, it's fine, he forces himself to say, voice coming out a little rough. I liked that, Midoriya smiles softly as Shoto adds, I would like it if you kept calling me by name. Good. I would like you doing the same with me as well. Midoriya replies, voice low. Shoto feels a little shiver run down his spine, heart beating in his throat at the mere thought. Izuku. He finally manages to let out, voice trembling, and the smile on Midoriya. No, on Izuku's face gets bigger as he shuffles forward, not letting his hands go. Shoto sighs trembly, leaning in a bit, but before he can brush his lips against Izuku's, he finds himself stopped by his fingertips. Just a second, Izuku says, serious. promise me you will come to me whenever you need it. The silence stretches a bit, and a little scowl appears on Izuku's face. Promise me. Okay. Shoto finally gives in, exasperated. I promise. Izuku purses his lips, squinting, but then takes his hand away from Shoto's mouth. We are in this together, he murmurs, his expression softening. And from now on we will walk side by side through happy times and hardships in equal measure. Okay? Shoto snorts, hiding how touched he really feels. Sounds like we were about to get married, Izuku. Izuku snickers, amused, his cheeks dusting with red once more. Then he licks his lips, and Shoto can't help but following the little movement, gently pressing his forehead against Izuku's, feeling his breath tickle against his own lips. This okay? He murmurs, seeing himself reflected into the pale aquamarine. Izuku hums affirmative, and Shoto closes his eyes as he tilts his head on the side and presses a gentle kiss on Izuku's mouth. Their hands shift palm against palm, fingers interlacing, as they kiss softly for a long minute. When they separate just barely, Izuku let out a little happy sigh. Would you like to sleep with me tonight? He asks in a relaxed murmur, and Shoto's brain kind of crashes for a second before Izuku continues. I can lend you a pajama if you need it. Right. Just sleeping. Not that kind of sleeping. Oh, thank God, I'm definitely not quite ready for that. Yeah, it's fine. If it's okay with you. I can go grab my own pajama from my room and be right back, so don't worry about it. Shoto replies, mentally thanking all the deities above for the fact that Izuku was keeping his quirk turned off for the moment. Izuku grins and nods, the image of pure, innocent happiness. Oh, this is irritating. Izuku grunts softly into the night as he squirms faintly in search of a comfortable position once more. Shoto's breath is steady near him, their legs entwined under the covers. The bed is big enough for the two of them, but still small enough to force them close. Not that Izuku minded, of course. He's tired, and he wishes nothing more than going to sleep into Shoto's pleasing embrace, especially considering the new trimester will start tomorrow, and he's absolutely exhausted after the exam. But he can't sleep, and he knows exactly the reason why. His mind kept going back to Kacchan's request, the way he presented it, what he said to him earlier that day after the first phase of the exam. Why did I listen to him anyway, going out after curfew and risking getting in trouble? But he did ask, in a way, didn't he? The Kacchan of only a couple of months prior wouldn't have asked, he would have pretended. Hell, he would have probably just grabbed Izuku by his shirt and dragged him outside, regardless of Izuku's wishes. God damn it! Izuku hisses low and frustrated. He knows he's not going to be able to sleep unless he hears whatever Kacchan had to say to him. He carefully turns belly up and palms at his nightstand, finding his clock. He lowers the volume as much as he can to avoid waking Shoto up before pressing the button. It's 10:56! The automated voice informs him in a whisper. Izuku takes a deep breath, cursing internally, before carefully sliding out of bed. He traces familiar steps toward the door and grabs his cane, stepping outside.